If you're worried that your memory is fading, you are not powerless. Groundbreaking research suggests that up to 40% of dementia cases could be prevented by addressing key lifestyle factors. That means nearly half of what drives cognitive decline is within our control. And today, I'm going to share a science-backed plan to protect and even improve your brain's performance, including memory. Hi, I'm Dr. Monti. As a doctor and neuroscientist, my early mentors believed that memory loss is just normal aging, but that's old science. In fact, a large study by Lancet in 2020 identified 12 modifiable factors from diet and exercise to sleep and social engagement that together account for about 40% of dementia risk. That's a huge opportunity, and it's why I get passionate about this topic. Your daily habits matter more than most people realize. So today, I'll break down the most important of these factors, explain the science behind them, and give you practical steps you can take to keep your brain sharp, no matter your age or your genetics. Let's dive in. Number 1, nutrition. You are what you eat. This cliche holds true for your brain. That's why getting enough of the right kind of healthy fat, omega-3s, is so critical to brain health. Something like 30% of the brain is made of that fat. The right nutrients in the diet fuel the brain and keep your mind sharp. That's why the Mediterranean diet, or some version of it, is consistently shown to be the best for your brain, and it makes sense. There's a lot of the good omega-3 fat I mentioned, fish, nuts, and olive oil, and plenty of other plant-based foods like vegetables, berries, and some whole grains to give you the vitamins, minerals, and phytonutrients the brain needs to function at its best. For example, a 2023 study of over 60,000 people in the UK found that those who closely followed a Mediterranean diet had about a 23% lower risk of developing dementia than those who didn't. That benefit held true even for people with high genetic risk, reinforcing that diet is a powerful tool for prevention. Researchers believe this way of eating supplies essential antioxidants and healthy fats that reduce inflammation and protect brain cells. On the flip side, diets high in processed foods, sugars, and unhealthy fats can accelerate cognitive decline. They contribute to inflammation and insulin resistance, which I'll talk more about in a moment. The good news, changing your diet can pay off quickly. In some studies, older adults who switched to a brain-healthy diet showed improved cognitive function within a couple of years. So load up on olive oil, leafy greens, and blueberries, and cut back on that junk. Your brain will thank you. Number 2, exercise. If there were a pill that could grow your brain, improve your memory, and cut your dementia risk, everyone would take it. Well, we have something even better, exercise. Moving your body is one of the most important, powerful brain boosters known to science. Don't just take my word for it, consider the science. In a remarkable study, sedentary adults in their 60s began doing moderate exercise, think brisk walking, 3 times a week. After 1 year, MRI scans showed their hippocampus, the brain's memory center, had actually grown by 2%, effectively reversing about 1 to 2 years of age-related volume loss. Even more amazing, these participants performed better on memory tests after the exercise program than before. They literally strengthened the hardware of memory through walking. We see similar effects in many studies. Regular physical activity increases blood flow to the brain, triggers the release of growth factors, and reduces inflammation. It doesn't require marathon running. The standard advice is 150 minutes of moderate aerobic exercise per week, like walking, cycling, or swimming, plus a couple days of strength training. I recommend 3 because muscle strength is closely tied to longevity. Population-based studies suggest that regular exercise might lower dementia risk by 30 to 40%. And if you don't like going to the gym, consider physical activities that engage your body on multiple levels, like swimming, dancing, or even working in the garden. The key is to get moving regularly to promote a protein called BDNF. I call it miracle grow for your brain. BDNF helps build stronger neural connections in the brain. And it's never too late to start. Studies with previously sedentary seniors show that beginning an exercise routine in one's 70s still improves executive function and processing speed. One major clinical trial found that combining exercise with other healthy lifestyle changes actually improved cognitive scores in at-risk older adults after about 2 years. The control group that didn't exercise saw decline, while the intervention group held steady or improved. That's essentially reversing the expected trajectory of decline. If exercise were a drug, every doctor in the country would be prescribing it for brain health. So start somewhere. Consult with your doctor about any limitations and do as much as you can. Number 3, let's talk about sleep, the unsung hero of brain health. You might think of sleep as downtime, but for your brain, it's a crucial maintenance window. This is where it gets really interesting. While you sleep, your brain isn't just resting, it's removing toxic buildup. This deep brain clean only happens once we enter the deepest phase of sleep. And the brain needs to be there long enough for the full effect. During deep sleep, your brain cells actually shrink, allowing cerebrospinal fluid to rush in and power wash the toxic debris that builds up during the day, including the amyloid proteins linked to Alzheimer's. But if you consistently skimp on sleep, those waste products can accumulate over time. And we know that chronic poor sleep is linked to memory problems and dementia risk. Just how important is sleep? A 2021 study followed nearly 8,000 middle-aged adults for 25 years and found that those who slept 6 hours or less per night on a consistent basis had about a 30% higher risk of developing dementia later in life compared to those who slept a solid 7 hours or more. 30% is no small bump. It suggests lack of sleep is shaving years off your cognitive health. Other research has shown that even one night of sleep deprivation raises brain levels of amyloid beta temporarily. Most adults need 7 to 9 hours of quality sleep for optimal brain function. If you have trouble sleeping, it's worth addressing, whether by improving sleep hygiene, like a dark, cool room, regular schedule, no heavy meals, or screen time before bed, or talking to a doctor if needed. It's not just about feeling alert, it's about giving your neurons time to repair and solidify memories. In fact, during sleep, your brain is busy replaying and organizing memories from the day, kind of like hitting save on the things you learned. Ever notice how a problem seems easier after a good night's sleep? That's your brain processing. So guard your sleep time. It's productive time for your mind. Number 4. Tackling insulin resistance. Now let's discuss something that might surprise you. Blood sugar and insulin and how they relate to your brain. You might have heard Alzheimer's disease occasionally referred to as type 3 diabetes. That's not an official term, but it hints at a real connection. People with poorly controlled blood sugar, think prediabetes or type 2 diabetes, have much higher rates of cognitive decline. One comprehensive meta-analysis concluded that having diabetes makes you about 73% more likely to develop dementia than someone without diabetes. In fact, diabetes roughly doubles the risk of Alzheimer's disease specifically. High blood sugar and insulin resistance, which is when your cells stop responding well to insulin because of constant blood sugar spikes, damage the brain's blood vessels and neurons by causing inflammation and oxidative stress. The encouraging news? You can improve insulin sensitivity by stopping the blood sugar spikes and losing excess fat. Blood sugar spikes every time you consume a soda, candy bar, big bowl of pasta, start the morning with sweetened instant oatmeal, and so on. Minimizing these foods and making sure there is protein and complex carbs when you have a small amount of them helps. So eating a dessert on an empty stomach will make blood sugar soar, but sharing a couple bites with your spouse of something sweet after a balanced meal will not be as severe. One study found that increasing muscle mass through strength training helps because muscles act like a sponge for glucose, soaking it up and stabilizing blood sugar. And indeed, patients with more muscle and better glucose control have lower Alzheimer's risk. So in sum, keeping your blood sugar in check is not just about preventing diabetes, it's also about protecting your brain. And it's never too early to adopt a more balanced, low glycemic diet. Think high protein, healthy fats, and fiber-rich foods, not donuts and soda. Your brain will function better almost immediately as your long-term risk of dementia goes down significantly. Number 5, quelling chronic inflammation. Everything we've talked about helps to quell chronic inflammation. You've probably heard the term inflammation a lot lately.
Inflammation.
1/3 of Americans are dealing with chronic inflammation.
It's a buzzword in health circles, and for good reason. Chronic inflammation, even low-level, hidden inflammation, is emerging as a major driver of aging and disease, including cognitive decline and dementia. Poor diet, inadequate sleep, insulin resistance, and not staying fit can all increase inflammatory chemicals in the body. We're not talking acute inflammation, the redness and swelling from a cut, but rather an insidious, body-wide state of high alert from those inflammatory chemicals constantly getting triggered. It's part of the immune system that gets overactive, and those chemicals over years can damage tissues, including brain tissue. So how do we know inflammation contributes to cognitive decline? Consider a long-term study from Johns Hopkins that tracked over 12,000 adults for 20 years. The researchers measured levels of inflammatory markers in midlife. 2 decades later, those who had the highest inflammation in their 40s and 50s had an 8 to 12% more cognitive decline on tests compared to those with low inflammation, even after adjusting for other factors. They even saw that high midlife C-reactive protein, a key inflammation marker, was associated with greater shrinkage in memory-critical brain regions later on. In short, inflammation was quietly sabotaging their brains over time. So we've talked about a few key things in our control that fuel chronic inflammation. There are others. Uncontrolled stress is a big one. It is important to reset the nervous system regularly with stress reduction techniques. Check out my video on 478 breathing as a starting place. Connected to this is loneliness and social isolation, which are stressful and their own independent risk factors. Reconnect with friends, join something fun, or get a pet to connect to. Sometimes our furry friends are the best ones. Smoking, of course, causes surges of inflammation, and even good dental care matters. Gum disease is a source of inflammation linked to higher Alzheimer's risk. By reducing chronic inflammation, you create an environment where your neurons can thrive instead of being under constant attack. Many scientists now believe inflammation is one of the final common pathways through which various risk factors, like poor diet, stress, or infections, damage the brain. The takeaway, a calmer immune system means a sharper brain. So adopt those anti-inflammatory habits. Your brain will thank you for it. Number 6, genes aren't destiny. Let's talk ApoE4 and hope in prevention. You might be wondering, what about genetics? What if Alzheimer's runs in my family? It's true that genetics play a role in dementia risk, and the most important gene is called ApoE. Specifically, the ApoE4 variant is the strongest known genetic risk factor for late-onset Alzheimer's. If you inherit one copy of ApoE4, your risk of Alzheimer's is about 3 times higher than someone with none.
You have 2 copies of ApoE4, a set from your mom and a set from your dad.
And what does that mean exactly?
2 copies, up to 12 to 15 times higher risk. That sounds intimidating, I know. Roughly 20% of people carry at least one ApoE4 allele, but here's the crucial part. Genes are not destiny.
Life will not be contained. Life breaks free. Life finds a way.
Many ApoE4 carriers never develop dementia, and taking care of those lifestyle factors is key. In fact, an inspiring 2019 study in the Journal of the American Medical Association showed that even if someone had high genetic risk, like ApoE4, but also followed a healthy lifestyle, their odds of developing dementia were significantly lower than genetically at-risk folks with unhealthy habits. In that study of nearly 200,000 people, high-risk individuals with good lifestyles had a 32% lower risk of dementia compared to high-risk folks with poor lifestyles. That's a big difference, purely attributable to how they lived. So yes, ApoE4 increases susceptibility, but it does not seal your fate. Think of it this way. Genetics load the gun, but the environment pulls the trigger. By changing your environment, diet, exercise, and so on, you can keep that trigger from being pulled. If you know through genetic testing that you carry ApoE4, consider it even more motivation to follow this brain-healthy plan. Everything we've discussed, nutrition, exercise, sleep, managing other factors that cause inflammation, matters even more for you. There's evidence that ApoE4 carriers might be especially sensitive to lifestyle factors like cholesterol levels, smoking, and head injuries. So controlling what you can is key. And on the horizon, researchers are studying tailored interventions for ApoE4 individuals, such as specific diets, pretty much like the one I'm constantly recommending for everyone regardless. Number 7, the gut-brain axis. Finally, let's touch on a fascinating emerging player in brain health, the gut-brain connection. Believe it or not, your gut, specifically the trillions of bacteria living in your intestines, known as the gut microbiome, communicates constantly with your brain. Some call the gut the second brain because it produces many of the same communication chemicals, sending signals that can affect mood, immunity, and cognition. You might have experienced this connection if you've had butterflies from anxiety or an upset stomach when stressed. But beyond acute feelings, the long-term health of your gut and how it supports the microbiome may influence brain aging. Recent research suggests that an unhealthy gut with the wrong balance of bacteria can promote inflammation and even the production of neurotoxic compounds that affect the brain. This imbalance comes from things we can control, like diet, which has a profound impact on the microbiome and other functions of the GI tract, stress levels that directly impact the gut's neurophysiology, and even excessive exposure to antibiotics. Of course, we can't control everything, such as toxic exposures outside our awareness, food poisoning, etc. So it is important to be as proactive to do the things in our control to keep the gut as healthy as possible. Because conversely, we know that healthy gut function and gut microbiome can produce beneficial chemicals like specific short-chain fatty acids that reduce inflammation and support brain health. A study published in 2024 went so far as to show that specific gut bacterial patterns could predict which older adults would go on to have cognitive decline and depression. Essentially, scientists could look at someone's gut bacteria and see signals of an aging brain. Now, this is a cutting-edge area, but it's something my team has been looking at for decades. And we continuously refine our protocols for gut health as more data comes out. But it looks like eating a fiber-rich diet, fruits, vegetables, whole grains, which feed the microbiome, and bringing in the good bacteria with fermented foods, such as kefir, sauerkraut, or even taking a probiotic supplement when we know that we're not going to consume enough of these things, helps cultivate a brain-friendly microbiome. On the other hand, a highly processed junk food diet can foster harmful microbes that churn out pro-inflammatory substances. So don't forget the importance of nutrition, again, not just for you, but for the billions of little helpers in your intestines that might be influencing your memory. So that was a lot of science. Let's recap now in plain language the things we should all be doing to have our brains healthy and thriving. Because the newest science shows that cognitive decline is not inevitable. And the earlier we intervene, the better. You have tremendous power to shape your brain's future. The major modifiable factors we discussed, nutrition, exercise, sleep, metabolic health, inflammation, stress reduction, and more, form a holistic game plan for your brain. If this sounds overwhelming, start with one or two areas. Maybe begin by adding an extra serving of greens and fiber to your meals, while making sure you get 7+ hours of sleep. Small changes snowball into big benefits over time. Do not be all or nothing in your thinking, because the good things that you do have an additive effect. Remember, major medical reviews estimate that about 1 in 3 dementia cases could be prevented by doing things like keeping blood pressure in check, staying active, and reducing inflammation. Even if you've noticed mild memory slips already, it's never too late to adopt these habits. The brain has amazing plasticity, meaning it has bounce back. It can form new connections and even regain some function before dementia sets in when given the right environment. I've had patients in their 70s tell me they feel mentally sharper than they did in their 40s after just a few months of lifestyle changes. It's incredibly rewarding to see. So what's your action plan? Starting today, take these ideas to heart. Put them into practice. Pick one thing to focus on. Go for a brisk walk after lunch. Swap the chips for a handful of nuts and berries. Call a friend you haven't spoken to in a while, or set an alarm to remind you to wind down before bed at a consistent time. Each of these actions, modest as they may seem, is a deposit in your brain health bank account. Over years, those deposits can add up to a much lower risk of serious memory loss. Thank you for watching. If you found this information helpful, please give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel. And with that, this is House Call. I'm Dr. Monti. Until next time, be sharp and be well. As I'm filming, the team writes things on Post-it notes on a board, and I read what they've come up with. So, Alzheimer's is type 3 diabetes. Great. What next? Type 4 from looking at donuts? Donuts is a contributor to all of these diabetes types, and that's really the issue. Gum disease linked to Alzheimer's. Okay, fine, I'll floss, but only on Tuesdays. Well, that's your personal decision, but actually, the more you floss, probably the better. The Mediterranean diet sounds easy until you realize wine isn't the main ingredient. Actually, wine is controversial, and the current thinking is that it's a neurotoxin, and probably any amount is a bad amount. Previously, there were some thoughts and some Mediterranean diet programs where wine is allowed. Important thing is that whether or not you have wine, that you stick to 1 glass or less. I kind of lean toward less. Exercise grows the hippocampus by 2% in a year, reversing 1 to 2 years of aging. But are you saying I can Benjamin Button my brain? Well, a little bit. If genes load the gun, but lifestyle pulls the trigger, can I put the safety on which salad? I think just starting with salad is a great way to keep things at bay, and whatever salad you like. And I think that this is an important thing that I emphasize to patients. Don't buy a grocery bag full of things you know you don't like. You're not going to eat them. So when it comes to the plant-based foods and healthy foods you want to transition to, pick ones you know that you like, or ones you know you can make yummy, and start there.